Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Talk with Lizzy podcast. I'm your host, Lizzy, and today we have a special guest, as always. She has come on before. Is her second time on, and before we were talking about just her life and her story of being in foster care and then being adopted, and then her testimony and where she is now. But now she has also reconnected with her bio mom, so that's what we're here to talk about today. This week's guest is Nevaeh. I'm so excited because I also get to go see Nevaeh when this podcast episode comes out. I'll get to see her tomorrow. So, super exciting. I can't wait. And so, that being said, let's hear about, her finding out about just her culture and just getting to know her bio more.
So I know that you've done some research into your background, and do you just want to explain, because how you started getting into that? What was your process like?
So growing up, like I shared in the last podcast with you, of just like my identity was very lost of like who I was. And so I think all of us at some point go through a season of our life where we kind of want to know more about who we are, our ethnic background, or even just like where we come from as a whole, like if you're adopted. But I think no matter who you are, at some point in your life, you do want to get to know a little more about who am I, like even personality traits, like getting to know my mom, which I'll jump into in a little bit. Getting to know my mom, that has showed how similar, like I never grew up with her, but how many just different similarities we have in the way we talk. Like she talks with her hands. I've always been like, let me talk with my hands.
If I didn't have this mic here, I'd be.
That like I got to like know so much about myself getting to know her, but like I've always been someone, I love history. If I didn't go into psychology, I think I would have definitely gone into history, or like even just like understanding like minority groups, because I love understanding just like people. And like understanding like patterns of people, because I think that's something I learned very young, of like your ethnic background, even if you didn't grow up in your culture, there are little bits and pieces of you in your DNA that come out through your personality. And I think that's even like not every single person in that ethnic background is the same, but there's little things that tie us all together. And like one thing me and my mom have joked about is like Puerto Ricans know how to party and they're loud. They know how to make everyone feel like family, and they're very much just in your face. And I joked with her, I was like, growing up in a family that was all like my adopted family is all more just laid back. They're quieter. They're all just like my dad and my little brother are very big people, but the rest of them are kind of just more like introverted. Like they have their group of people, but they're just more on the like quieter side. I've never been that way. Like my parents said that the first day that they met me at the courthouse, I was, "Hi, my name's Nevaeh. Like, nice to meet you." Like very in their face. I was 3. So like from a very young age, I've always been outgoing. And so like there were little things about me that I could see in my family structure that I just wasn't the same as them. And I think that's what helped me to get an interest in like, okay, I want to know where I come from. I want to know where these personality traits come from. Just this like loud personality, outgoing personality, because like environment does play in a role of who we become, but our DNA does too. Like I think that's one thing that like psych has taught me a lot of, like there are little things in your DNA that'll come out in your personality because your brain is wired that way. And so environment does play a role, but like who you are at like your DNA and like bone structure side of it also plays a role. So that's what really helped me like to dive into like, okay, who am I? Where do I come from? Like where are these personality traits coming from? And so young age, always wanted to know my mom. There was never a big desire to know who my dad was. I don't know why, there just wasn't for me. Still very much isn't. Like as I've gotten to know my mom's story and just who she is and where I come from, there hasn't really been a big drive to know who he is. I think I want to do a DNA test to see like ethnically what I am and like DNA what I am. Other than that, there isn't a big desire. I think also that plays a role of like just knowing that it wasn't by choice for my mom to have me and that it was unconsensual for her to get pregnant. that does play a role a little bit of just like right now, as I am still going through those emotions, as I've heard this story, it is a little harder for me to be like, oh, like, yeah, I want to get to know this person that did this thing and did like all of that. And so there isn't a big desire for that side. I think ethnically I want to know, but freshman year of college, had not a great roommate situation. Funny enough, my social security card went missing with my roommates, and I went down to the social security office, and he's like, "What's your mom's maiden name?" And I was like, so I gave him my like adoptive mom's maiden name, and he's like, "No, your biological mom." And I was like, I don't even know who she is. I know nothing about her. And like that was a God moment because he was like, I can tell you're being genuine. I'm gonna give you your card, and at the end of the paperwork, your mom's maiden like full name is on there. And I was like, what? And he's like, this is an opportunity. Like, if you want to look her up, you have the choice. If you want to get rid of this paper, you can.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, I sat in the car with Evan, and I was like, well, I don't know if I'm ready to talk to her, but I do want to see what she looks like. Because there's always been that part of me. I was like, okay, I want to see if I look like her. And so we looked her up. It took us a little while, but found her on social media, and I stalked her for about a year because I was just like,
I remember that.
ready. Like, I like watching her life, but I don't really know if I'm like emotionally ready for that. And it was actually this last Christmas. I was at Evan's house with his family, and his mom asked, she's like, well, like, have you looked at her social media recently? I was like, I haven't, but like, let's look at it together. We can do a little stalking together. And she had wished me a happy birthday. That was the first time on her social media she's ever mentioned me. She said, happy birthday to my firstborn. I hope you know I always will love you, and I'm praying for you. And that just like hit me. I was like, wow, like a woman who 20 years ago had a kid, gave them up, still thinks about me every day. I think that hit me. I was like, oh, like I'm not just a person she forgot of. And so I was like, okay, like I know in this next year I'm gonna reach out to her. Then a lot of stuff was just like our wedding happened that just made me not ready to reach out to her because there was just a lot of just family things going on. And so I said, okay, like let me get married, let me get my life settled, and then I will. But as time went on, I noticed myself keep making excuses. Oh, well, let's move to Arizona first. Oh, let me find a job first. Oh, let me start school first. Let me do this first. And I finally had to sit down with Evan and like I said, I think if I don't do it, I'm just going to keep building up excuses because there is a part of me that is scared to reach out. Like, what will I say? What will she say? What truths will I find out? And I think that's what I was scared of. I think a lot of times truth does scare people because in our heads, we have our truth and we have the story that we've built up and we don't want it to get debunkled and our foundation to break. And so I was a little scared for that to happen. And so I was like, okay, you know what I'll do? I'm not going to reach out to her, but I'll friend her on Facebook. Within 10 minutes of me friending this woman, I get a message from her. Oh my gosh, it's my firstborn. Can I please call you? And I was like, Evan, she wants to call me. Like, what do I do? I was like, I'm so excited, but like, what will I say? Like, what can I say? And he's like, just pray about it and call her. And so we ended up our first time on the phone calling for like 3.5 hours. And that was like such an amazing experience of like, she was so honest. And that's one thing I respect my mom so much for is she said to me, she goes, I'm not going to hide anything from you. I'm going to be brutally honest. I know it might hurt a little, but I'm going to tell you everything. And I said, I'm open, all ears open. Like, I want to know. I want to know the truth. Like, I want to know the full story. So we ended up talking, and I found out a lot of things that hurt me because it was a lot of lies that I grew up hearing. And I think that was hard for me because my whole world kind of was just like lost of like, wow, like all of these truths that I thought, even like the woman that I painted in my head of who she wasn't true. There were a lot of lies and just things that were twisted. And so she shared a lot with me of just like, she wasn't the one that put me up for adoption. Her friends did. So like even just finding that out of like, wow, like she didn't find out I was like put up for adoption a couple years later. Like it wasn't even right away for her.
That's crazy.
And so even just different things like that of like, also for her, like she was brutally honest with this too. She's like, I didn't have the same connection with you. Like I loved you, but I didn't have the same connection with you as all my other kids because you weren't consensual. And I said, no, that's totally understandable. Like, but she did the thing that most people wouldn't have done. She said, I'm going to be selfless. And I let her know this. I was like, I want you to know you set such an incredible example of what selfless love looks like by carrying a kid that wasn't your choice. You were 16, 17 years old when this happened to you. And you said, as a little kid, like 17, like I could not imagine being pregnant at 17.
No.
I'm 20 right now and I'm still
And
like,
I can't imagine it, yeah.
let's wait a couple of years. But like I had that conversation with her of just like, you were so selfless to be a woman that said, I'm not going to let my own selfish emotions get in the way of knowing that this is my kid. And like, even just her being like, I've always kept my social medias up. One thing she did do so that I wouldn't as a little kid find her, she didn't give me her last name at the hospital. She gave me her boyfriend, which is my brother's dad. He's younger, so they had a kid together. My brother's last name, which found that out. And I was like, wow, like that's crazy. Like all of these things that like I was told growing up were just being like altered in my head. And I think that just helped me so much to be like, wow, like you were so much more selfless in the things you did continuously throughout your life with all of your kids. Like she's had a lot of hard things happen to her. And just like all the things that she's told me, I was like, wow, like you continuously, not even just for me, but your other kids were selfless. And that was before you knew the Lord. And so like that's just something that was like such a testimony to see of like her continuously before she found the Lord and after she found the Lord of just showing up for her kids. And one thing that was so like, this almost made me cry, but all of her kids have always known about me. So like when I met them on the phone, they were like, Nevaeh! And I was like, oh, what? Like these little kids know me and I've known nothing about them my whole life. And my little brother, he had cancer, beat cancer. And after he found out he beat cancer, his prayer for the last year has been that Jesus would help them find me and that their family would be complete. Yeah. And so just
so cute.
I was like, wow, like as a mom, she hasn't hid anything from her kids. And like that really shows like what I want to be as a parent from like the example she's been is like all of her kids, even my youngest sister who is 3, knows what my mom has gone through in life. Obviously, it's probably not like explaining little details, but like from an aspect of like understanding a child's age and being honest with them, knowing that they have an older sister that they've never met, knowing that they have other siblings from other dads, knowing that their mom has gone through hard seasons of life, like that shows that she wants her kids to view her as someone that has gone through life, isn't a perfect person, but has been changed because of God. And I think that was just such a true testimony to me of like, when we don't hide things from our kids, yes, you're still going to have a kid that like disrespects and goes through like their emotions as a kid. But just seeing like the way that my little siblings like look at my mom and how much they respect her because she's honest with them, was just really cool to watch of like, my mom has gone through everything. Like she, at the age of 14, left her parents, like her dad's house because she wanted to prove her dad that she could cross the Mississippi and like live life by herself. And so at the age of 14 was living life by herself, traveling the country. Yeah. So that has been something, like, even my mom said, like, to me, she's like, you have been someone that has shown me that you broke a generational curse within my family, because every woman, her mom, her aunts, her cousins, her, have all had a kid by 17, all of them. And all of them have been either have, I think they all have been little girls. And so that was her biggest fear, that she's prayed over all of her girls, because there's three of us girls. I'm the oldest. There's one that I think just turned 16, and then the youngest is 3. And she's like, you have been like, you've proven there is generational curses being broken because of the things, like the choices she made as a parent. She could have been selfish and been like, I'm going to keep you. But like, my mom was going through drug addiction when I was little. And she said one day, because she never did it around me, but she said one day when she came home, she saw the same face that she used to make as a little girl when she saw her parents come home high and drunk and like just out of it. And she goes, that broke my heart, because I knew that if I didn't make a choice to like give you up, I was going to put you through the same thing I went through. And I think, like, even just hearing that, of like, when we choose to be selfless, even with the choices we make with our kids and in our future, like, it does impact, it does break generational curses. And so, like, I think that's something that she really has shown, of just like, just different things, like, that she shared, that she's like, you're a testimony of like the choices I made that hurt and that were heartbreaking did make a change in our family,
Right.
did make a change of like, I'm 20, haven't had a kid, and am happily married. And she goes, that's just such a true testimony to like the Lord changing our family. And I was like, that's so incredible to see. But it's also fun, because I'm like, I gained a family of like, I have, I think it's 5, 6 little siblings, ranging from 18 to 3. And
It's
so
crazy.
that's been so fun to just like be able to look at like my life, and like, I get to show my siblings that like, no matter where you're at in life and like everything that our mom has done for us, you can do a lot of great things with your life and be happy and go to school, get married, like all of these different things. And so, yeah, I think that's been really fun. Also, just like getting to know her, and like, just like my family history of like addiction and just like different things. Like, it's shown a lot of characteristics in myself of like, I do have a very addictive personality. Like, just with different things, like when I like something, I do consume myself with it, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, that's something I've had to learn with myself. But also, just like me, my mom, and my brother that's 18 all talk very similarly. We also all are very outgoing, but like, when it comes down to it, like, if we're gonna like have fun with people, we don't want it to be this massive huge party. Like, we'd rather it be like a smaller group of people that we know and we enjoy. And so, just like talking through things and being like, oh, I think the same way, or I do the same thing. And so, just getting to connect all those dots and seeing how similar like I am to a woman that I've never met. So, yeah.
That's so cool. I'm so happy for you that you got to talk to her and got to meet her. I'm really grateful that you've gotten to see where you come from and have like a good relationship with her, because, you know, like, you weren't sure how it was going to go, and just seeing it just so beautifully played out by the Lord, like, that's amazing.
But
Yeah. Were you going to say something else? Sorry.
The only thing I was going to say is I'm meeting her for the first time in December. Found out that my graduation is the day of my 21st birthday, and her and some of my siblings are going to drive down. And so I get to meet them the week of my birthday, which will be so fun and so exciting. But yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing, Nevaeh. I'm so happy for you. That's so cool, though, too. Like, that your birthday and your graduation are lining up. That's awesome. Are you still going to be in Arizona after you graduate?
Yeah, because
For how
Evan
long?
didn't graduate until
Oh,
April. And so I think we're not going to move to South Carolina until May or June, probably closer to June, only because craziness with graduation, just getting everything.
you want some time. Yeah. That's so exciting, though. And I'm so excited to come visit you. Oh my
I'm so
gosh.
excited.
What would you say to someone who is actively looking for or thinking about reaching out to their biological parents?
Yeah. I would say the emotions you're feeling, feel them, because if you don't feel them before getting into that relationship, it's gonna be an emotional wreck and it's gonna be really hard. So like the emotions you're feeling before of just like whether it's identity crisis of just not knowing where you're coming from or like knowing the person, because like that was me for a year of like looking at my mom of just like, okay, like I see this woman but like I don't know her yet and I don't know how to feel. She does have some of her other kids, and like that was emotionally kind of hard for me at first. Feel those emotions out and like know that those emotions are valid and that it's okay that you're feeling those things. Like um your heart is going through so much, but also just remember to take your time. You don't have to feel like, yes, they are your parents, um, but you don't have to feel like you have to all of a sudden have this incredible relationship where you're sharing all your deepest, darkest secrets and all the things that you've been through life, but just get to know them like you would any other person, because that is something new. That is someone new. And just take your time and know that like it is going to be a lot of emotions of just like even after you meet them of like, oh my gosh, like I met them, I'm so happy, but also sometimes having the emotions of just being like, wow, like this has been something I've, because like for me at first I was like, wow, like I've been longing for this for the last 20 years of my life. It's finally happening. And it's okay to like not really know your emotions of like, okay, I'm feeling happy at one moment, and then the next moment I'm feeling, am I putting in enough energy? Am I not putting enough energy in? Like, where is it going? So yeah, all those emotions are gonna be totally normal, and again, like just know yourself, because your identity is not coming from that person. Like, yes, they are your parent, and yes, they are the person who gave birth to you and is a part of who you are, but know who you are, because if you try to find your identity in someone that you're just meeting, it is going to be hard because they're different. They've lived life very different than you have. And yes, there might be similar chapters in your guys' life that align, but your identity is not coming from who they are. They are your parent, but at the end of the day, who you are is where you should have your foundation of like your identity comes from the Lord and who He created you to be. And it is so fun to be able to like connect the dots, but just remember that don't wrap your identity in who they are.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. How can we be praying for you?
yeah, I would just say, um, for my relationship with my family of like just getting to know all of them and just being able to be a light. Like they all believe in the Lord, but again, just like being able to be a light to them and share my testimony of like everything the Lord has put me through, but how like incredible life has been throughout all the hard. And also just having the time to like being on different coasts and time zones is so hard, especially like because she has little ones. They go to bed earlier, and so like just that we would be able to spend good quality time together and making that time throughout our weeks to like
Yeah.
call and chat. So yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it because I definitely did. I love talking to Nevaeh, and I'm so excited to go see her tomorrow. And I'm so happy that she got to meet her bio mom. That's such an amazing thing. So go follow her. I will link her stuff in the show notes. And then all the ways to support the podcast are in the show notes, because this episode is not just on here, it's on the Patreon, because we have extra content from this week's episode on the Patreon. The entire like first half of this podcast was originally a totally different topic, and so I wanted to still share that, but not on the actual podcast episode. So if you want to go check that out, I'm making a post about it this week if you just want to hear a little about it. And then you can go and join the Patreon for $5 a month to hear the rest of the episode, which will drop on Friday. So make sure you check that out. Going on the Patreon and joining is one of the top ways to support the podcast. Other ways are through obviously prayer, through sharing the episode, and then also buying from companies that support us. And these are Elevated Faith and Dwell, which are both Christian apparel companies and just great ways to start conversations. Cowboy Colostrum, which is a superfood, helps your immune system, helps nail growth, hair growth. And then we have Opre Beauty, love them, Pilates and wellness brand for like facial health. And then also just Pilates stuff. Love them. Another one is 28 Co. If you don't know what that is, it is an app that helps you track your cycle, track your period, really have a really good understanding of the different parts of your cycle. You get insights on like specific to the day. You get recipes, grocery lists, and workouts. And I just absolutely love it. So happy to work with them. But again, thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. I'll see you guys for next week's episode. Have a great rest of your week and God bless.